Okay, it says we're live. For those watching on YouTube, hang out for a minute while we do some housekeeping, get the link posted on our Telegram channel. This is the Technical Steering Committee for the Permissionless Software Foundation. It's April 28th, 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm going to post this link into the Telegram channel. Okay. All right. Well, let's do a brief round of introductions. My name is Chris Troutner. I founded the Permissionless Software Foundation with several other people, but I am currently the head janitor, trying to just keep the machinery running. David, go ahead and introduce yourself.
My name's David R. Ellen, and I've been helping Chris with business development for pretty close to a year, I think.
Stoyan, you want to introduce yourself?
My name is Stoyan Zhekov, and I'm helping with maintaining the JavaScript libraries, BSH, JS, and examples, etc.
Awesome. Okay, well, with that, let's jump into the agenda.
With Aaron.
Oh, Aaron. Well, Aaron is just sort of standing by. He's interested in what we're doing. He participated in our community chat last week, doing some pretty interesting stuff with NFTs. Okay, so on the agenda today, basically the focus for today and these technical steering committee meetings, we're not really yet big enough to have a formal agenda. We have plans on how to scale when we're ready to scale, but at the moment, this is really just an opportunity for us to celebrate some of our technical accomplishments every couple weeks, give a shout out to the developers in the community that are working hard on improving the software that the foundation curates. So I'll just go through this list fairly quickly. There's a lot to point out. So wallet.fullstack.cash has had the alpha label removed. So there was previously a big red warning sign here that said, warning, alpha, things will break. The software's stable. We're not planning any major upgrades that would introduce breaking changes. We'll continue to, from here on out, we're pretty much just going to focus on plugins, which don't have the possibility of breaking backwards compatibility. They're just add-ons. So the wallet's fairly stable. It's been working really good. We haven't had any complaints from anyone in a long time. So that's why we removed the alpha. We're also starting to experiment with native iOS and Android apps. iOS is going to be a little slow just because very few people in the community have Apple products, because we tend to be focused in South America, and I don't think there's anyone in South America that owns an Apple product. But we do have an Android APK. If you go to the About page, you can get a link to the GitHub repository, and I think we actually call out, you can download right here is the link to the APK in the GitHub repository if you want to sideload it as an app. You may run into rate limits that way. We're thinking about how to set this up for a better user experience for native phone. We're also trying to, as it says here, I won't go over it, but if anybody is curious, this is really a developer tool. So the focus for us is not on building native phone apps, but to show that it is possible to build a phone app. Really, the intent of this wallet is for businesses to fork it and build on top of it and customize it, hit the ground running. So that is wallet.fullstack.cash. Pretty excited to get the alpha label removed. A lot of people have asked over the last few months when we're going to remove it. It's finally gone. Okay, so Cash Strap is a web page on the fullstack.cash website, and the entire cache stack or infrastructure that we run at fullstack.cash and charge access for can be run independently by anyone. One of our big goals has always been to not be a walled garden. And what we mean by that is we don't want to force people to use our software if they are capable and prefer the sovereignty and also the risk and reward of running your own infrastructure. So we are supporting 3 chains: the Bitcoin Cash chain, the eCash or ABC chain, and the testnet chain. And so for testnet 3, which is based on the BCHN full node, there's kind of a couple different testnet 3s now that they've forked, and there's even a testnet 4. So we focus on testnet 3 because that's traditionally been the primary testnet. All of these files, they're pre-synced databases. So for example, here is the blockchain for testnet 3. It's approximately 23 gigabytes. We distribute these files over IPFS. That's new. We had previously distributed them over torrent, but now we're distributing them over IPFS. So anyone can spin up an IPFS node, type IPFS get, and then paste in this hash, and they'll begin downloading and seeding these databases, which is just one big zip file. And then they're paired with a Docker container. And so you unzip the zip file, and then you use the Docker container to mount the pre-sync database. And doing it this way, trying to sync from Genesis, both trying to do the whole stack, a full node in Fulcrum indexer and SLP indexer, takes several weeks and about 2 terabytes of data. In this case, you can get up and running as fast as you can download the files. So if you are in a data center with big pipes and you have a high download speed, your time to get new infrastructure set up is based on the amount of time it takes for you to download these files. Because then you just run the Docker container, it mounts the files, and all it has to do is sync from the time the snapshot was taken, which in most of these cases was April 12th, just a few days ago. So this is an excellent way for, I'm seeing more and more businesses do this. I was just talking to a business actually that is in the process of spinning up their own testnet infrastructure. And it's a great way to dev. When you're a serious business building a serious application, you typically want to have some in-house infrastructure that is sort of a sandbox that's totally within your control. But then when you move to production and you're worried about scaling, that's when cloud services become really important and the architecture becomes really important. So providing these tools is very pro-business. It's very pragmatic from a business standpoint. So that took quite a bit of time to get all that organized and updated. So I'm pat myself on the back for that. Okay, and then another really exciting piece of news here is the SLP Avalanche bridge is functional on both chains and in both directions. I played with it. We're in the process of setting up a test server and creating a faucet for just a play token so that people can practice sending tokens across blockchains. So that's probably going to be working in the next couple of weeks. But if anybody wants to go to this agenda and follow this link, they can look at the code. It's based on the token liquidity app that we use for the PSF token. There's a test folder and an end-to-end test folder in that, and it's got end-to-end test scripts that people can use if they want to just charge ahead because they're excited. Feel free to reach out to me and the PSF for help. But you can set this up and you give it a wallet on both the Avalanche chain and the Bitcoin Cash chain, and then you tell it the tokens that you want it to be using. It has to be a specific token. It doesn't work with any generic token. And it will when you send them to one side, it'll burn the token and then mint it on the other side and send it to the address that you specified. And it works in both directions.
So this faucet, it will work on the SOP side, right? You will get the tokens from this faucet and then move them to Avalanche.
Exactly.
So there's still no like a faucet on the Avalanche side to start from there, right?
We're going to create a faucet on both sides.
On both sides. Okay.
Yeah. So on the Avalanche side, Avalabs has a web wallet for working with tokens. And so we'll create just a simple single page app that's loaded with tokens that you can go to, give it your wallet address, and it'll send you tokens on the Avalanche side. And then we'll do the same thing on the BCH side. We'll have a one-page app faucet where you can give it a Bitcoin Cash address or a simple ledger address, and it'll send you tokens. So regardless of which chain you prefer or start from, there will be a faucet where you can claim tokens and then move them across. Yeah, good question. Okay, so those are sort of the more immediate things. Now we're starting to transition into some of our more long-term projects. Chat.fullstack.cash has had several upgrades. I've actually got it loaded here and running. I just want to point out a couple things. So JSON LD stands for linked, the LD stands for linked data. And it's a way of structuring JSON so that computers can automatically get some sort of context about the data. So it's like you basically call out like this data has to do with a person or a place or a thing or a service or an offer. And it's a schema.org is the main sort of source for this machine readable schema that we're adopting. And so one of the most fundamental ideas here is to give it a name, like to identify a name. So one of the upgrades that chat.fullstack.cash got is that previously the idea of chat is you log in here and it fires up an IPFS node and it looks on the pub sub channel for anybody else who's monitoring the pub sub channel and wants to interact. That's how like providers of services and consumers of services coordinate. And so previously, so when it finds someone, it'll pop up a button here on the left. And so previously it would show the IPFS hash of that peer, which is not human readable. So now what happens is when it finds a new peer that wants to communicate with it, there's a JSON LD or linked data payload that comes through, and there's a name in there, and it pulls that name out, and then it changes the button. So this is so in this example, this is a generic IPFS service provider that it's just a bot that I set up, and it pops up for everybody, and you can interact with it. You can send it JSON RPC commands, and just sort of the cool thing here is we're getting away from the IPFS peer IDs, and we're moving towards human readable labels and starting to leverage this linked data concept to make the app and everything more human friendly and human readable, even though all the necessary IPFS hashes and stuff still happen under the hood. And then the other nice thing is that state is retained. So let's do a demo and see if it works. But previously, if you had gone to like wallet or gone to one of these other windows and then clicked back, it would have reset your entire state. But now you can see it's fine. All my chat data is still there, and I can still click around and interact with everything. So things don't go away. You know, the app works like it should. That's the major improvement here. So that's cool. So just continue again, chat.fullstack.cash. It can be used as an end-to-end encrypted instant messenger, but it's not really what it's intended for. It's intended as a developer tool for exploring providing services, uncensorable services over IPFS. So I'm pretty excited about that because this actually, the second one, this IPFS service provider, that feeds into this next one. Daniel, huge shout out to Daniel for all this work, all this front end work at chat.fullstack.cash. He went through the documentation and he updated a lot of this stuff. So there's full API documentation for the JSON RPC. So here's an example just to show. If I go to the about, this is a way to just retrieve information about another node on the network. So if I go to the IPFS service provider and I paste in that JSON RPC, it will respond with information about itself. So here's a little blurb. So that's what this API documentation is for these sort of IPFS service providers, which it's a boilerplate that people can fork to build their own services. So it comes with these sort of basic ways of interacting with it, like querying it about the about endpoint to see what it's about, creating a user, typical CRUD endpoints for working with a user object, getting a JOT token if a service provider wants to meter out services. So like one idea here is I want to eventually use this technology to break up fullstack.cache so that fullstack.cache is not a monolithic service that's centralized and easy to censor. I would like to fork these service providers so that anyone with a full node can set up a service provider and sell access to that full node for such as like broadcasting transactions or maybe getting transaction information that's needed to do something like verify an account or basically think of anything that you could do on memo.cache. So the idea here is using this JSON RPC, anybody with any type of valuable service that they can offer over the internet can do so. Computers can interact with one another in an uncensorable way and exchange money, Bitcoin Cash or other cryptocurrencies. So that's the big picture where we're heading to. So this is just one more step in that long journey. But it's always great to have good documentation. We're quickly getting to a point where people can safely fork the software and start customizing it for their own business. And then the final thing on the agenda to cover is the COA API boilerplate, which is it's actually not technically a PSF piece of software. It's in my personal GitHub repo, but we've used this software we forked it to create a whole bunch of software. Just a few of them is like the JOT token server for fullstack.cache is based on it. The PSF token liquidity app is based on it. This IPFS service provider is based on it. It's a Node.js app for creating a REST API server. And then what we've done is we refactored a lot of the tests. We broke them up so that there's tests specifically for the REST API, and then there's tests specifically for the JSON RPC over IPFS, and then there's tests specifically for the business logic. So just by breaking it up, it makes it a better boilerplate so that when you're forking it to customize it for your own business, you have very clear locations for where depending on what you're doing, where to put your tests and how to structure your code. So this is really just going back and polishing our assets and just making them more valuable and easier to use, easier to consume, easier to build on top of. So that's pretty much the agenda. Did you guys have any questions about what I covered or comments?
I wanted to ask about this JSON AOD. I think this IPFS, they have something like IPFS NS, like name service stuff.
Right.
Well, is it, how to see? This one is like a better way to do the name to hash resolving?
They're really different things. JSON LD is it's just a format of, it's just a generic data format. So it's not specific to any particular use case. It's actually like a Web3 standard. So they built it with the idea of, for use in web pages, and they weren't thinking about blockchains or IPFS or anything like that when they created it. IPNS, the name service, is it's how do it's many things. What it technically is a digital hash table, a DHT, or a decentralized hash table, and it's a way of resolving mutable data in an immutable. IPFS is an immutable. It uses DAGs and everything's immutable. You can't change it. But with IPNS, you can sort of say, hey, this hash points to this data, and then you can change that pointer. So it's a way for them to do mutable data in an immutable system. And but it's got a lot of problems. The main problem being that it's slow. It's really, really slow. And so that's led to a lot of use case issues. So like, for example, uncensorablepublishing.com goes into depth on this IPNS and how I've used the Bitcoin Cash blockchain as a replacement for it, because it's much fast. If you have access to a service like fullstack.cash, it's much faster to query the blockchain, a piece of information and replace that IPNS pointer than to actually use IPNS. IPNS can take minutes, whereas a lookup on the blockchain takes a second. So that's IPNS. Really, so they don't really have anything to do with one another, and they actually complement one another. Where say like IPNS could point at a JSON LD payload that changes over time, and that's one way where they would really complement one another. Yeah. Well, Stoyan, what have you been working on, man?
Oh, recently I have this React based site for NFS information. You can get you can put there some transaction ID, and it will get the information about this NFS, like what is the group, the quality, if it's some media attached somewhere, like on the IPFS somewhere, it will also get this thing. It will show it. So I needed to fix it several times because when you try to get the information about the NFS groups, you can get it not one by one, but like for a bunch of groups. And I tried with more than 100 groups, and the response was too big. So I need to implement some kind of pagination.
Oh, it was an SLPDB query, and it was too big.
So
that's easy to
this
do.
stuff. And also I need to I'm working on this BCP still, but I want to make it a little more general maybe, because now there is the specifically IPFS mentioned, but recently there is the several interesting choices for where you can save your media, like SIA. They have this SIAnet. It seems good.
Yeah, how far have you explored SIA, and what's your impression been with that?
Still I just uploaded one file, so I don't think I have experiment, but it's almost the same concept like IPFS. It's the content ID, and when you put the SIA : / it will show me that okay, this thing is on the SIA. If you put the IPFS : / okay, this thing is somewhere. So I want to put this in this BCP standard. So when you put this kind of URL, URI, or whatever, it will understand where exactly is the media and will try to get it from there.
Cool.
So because now it's supporting only IPFS, but there's interesting choices coming. So
have you looked into I'm curious about SIA and how I know like in IPFS it's a mesh network, right? So being able to get the data that you want, it largely comes down to a networking problem, which can be a significant problem. And I'm wondering, do you know how SIA solved that? Is I think it's decentralized, but I don't know how decentralized or how they go about doing it.
I think it's decentralized because everybody can run a node, right? I'm not sure how they I read more about this new storage was interesting. I
Yeah,
read
that's
more
another.
about them than for SIA because
Okay.
Hotzi, they also have encryption. They encrypt every piece with of this
Cool.
software. They distribute it to many machines. And
Encryption by default.
yeah, and yesterday also there was I visited this IPFS meetup. They have every like month, I think, online stuff on Zoom. So there was an interesting services named NFT dot storage. The URL is NFT dot storage.
Mm-hmm.
And what is interesting, they trying to mix IPFS plus Filecoin.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they will give you some like API.
Mhm.
With this API call, you can upload your file, but you don't care where it's going. Behind this,
Right.
there will be IPFS and Filecoin contracts.
Mm-hmm.
So they how to see hope that in this case it will be better than just pinning it because like these Filecoin guys, they have interest to keep the file most of
Right.
the time.
Yeah.
So
So I've been exploring that interface between IPFS and Filecoin, mostly using textile.io, their tool called PowerGate. And so this was one of the reasons why I moved from torrents to IPFS for storing the cache strap files, because
Mhm.
now that they're on IPFS, it's really easy to push them to Filecoin, and especially using their PowerGate software. I've been beta testing the PowerGate software that Textile.io creates, and so what's nice about this is like here's a good example is I have some of these database snapshots from just before the ABC BCH fork last November, and that information, it's really nice to have a snapshot at that point in time, like if you want to say test a new full node implementation and see how it would handle a real fork. You can basically sync it to that point in time and then see what it does from there. And so these snapshots, because they're time based, they have value because of that moment in time. And so it's really nice to be able to push them up to Filecoin, which is like an archival storage type of thing. And then to add a little more value on top of that, this is still in beta, but their alpha maybe, but their PowerGate has these settings where you can specify redundancy and repairability. So for instance, you can say like, I want this file stored with 3 different miners, and then it'll periodically check to make sure that those miners are still up and still have the file. And if one of them like disappears, it will try to automatically negotiate like another miner and restore it. And if something's damaged, it'll try to automatically repair it. So I find that to be like a really fascinating, value add. And I don't know how storage or SIA handle these things. I assume they probably do. I'm ignorant of it.
Yeah, this storage guy, they have how to see. I like them because they constantly how to see creating the new open source. Like yesterday or today, they have a replacement for the Google RPC named DRPC. So it's an open source project, completely compatible with the with the Google gRPC.
Cool.
And it's open source. Also
Nice.
they have another like project. Everything is like their repository is very good. So also they're trying to be like Amazon S3 compatible also. So they're trying to replace the already running standard stuff, but with open source decentralized replacements. So it's interesting project. I like their work.
Cool. Well, good update. Good update. Okay. Well, Aaron, do you have anything that you wanted to discuss?
Yeah, on the storage side, uh, my brother owns some retail places and stuff like that. I definitely think there's an opportunity on a physical side to open up centers where you don't necessarily stack them with servers, but you allow the infrastructure for people to host their own servers.
Mhm.
Part of the reason I got this idea is when I'm doing these videos, I'm like, man, it'd be nice to have a server, but I'm not going to use it all the time. And it'd be nice to sell the computing power to the server when I'm not using it. But also, just setting up the server like is a huge setup cost, in my house or something like that. And here where I'm at, they limit 30 megabyte uploads, which is ridiculous for Cox. But you can have a business connection, but it costs you a bunch of money. So I think there's a use case for something like this, as a lot of retail space is now open, pairing with these formats of storage or Filecoin or IPFS to actually provide that storage that in a decentralized way that competes with Amazon S3 services
Mhm.
and also provides things faster. And so, and another use case is like, imagine you're a business. Do you want to pay to set up all your servers and house them there? Or do you want to house them in a place where you don't have the setup costs and also you can sell the additional space on your servers to the marketplace?
Yeah, that's the gist. I mean, this is a use case that's near and dear to my heart because it's what actually got me back into Bitcoin about 4 years ago. I created p2pvps.com and .org. I don't even know if the websites are still up.
I saw that yesterday. I was looking at that. Yeah.
Yeah. So that got me back into Bitcoin because I was trying to use Open Bazaar as like the financial layer to,
Mhm.
I mean, I got the technology pretty far where anybody with, whether it's a Raspberry Pi or a desktop or whatever, you just run, a couple commands and it runs all the software. And then you can begin renting out your resources.
Yeah.
But where I got hung up was the payments. So I was trying to use Open Bazaar. That was back in 2017. The price spike happened, and then that got me into Bitcoin Cash because then we had to find a way to actually do business with Bitcoin again.
Yeah.
And yeah. So I hear what you're saying. I mean, there's two things that are driving these demographics that make me really excited. One is the continuous rollout of fiber optics around the world, like in the
Mhm.
US, but around the world, really.
Yeah.
So more and more residential homes are getting high speed fiber connectivity. And then from there, once you actually have big pipes, it's simply a matter of networking. And that's one of the things that I
Yep.
really appreciate about IPFS is how much thought they've put into the networking. And this chat.fullstack.cache, it's intended to like make it so that you don't have to think about the networking. You just hit go, and then all of that gets figured out for you. And so any dude in Nigeria with a Raspberry Pi and a hard drive can rent storage to someone in China, and all the networking and firewalls in between just go away.
Yeah. I think I love that idea. The physical problem I see here is uh, the providers limiting the upload bandwidth,
Mm-hmm.
and they put a cap on it here. I mean, I can get a gigabyte download, but they're capping it at 30 megabytes. So if you're trying to use that for any computational or any file sharing stuff, and you're running and you want to run a lot, you're going to really hit a ceiling there, you know.
Yeah, I think that's a uniquely American thing. Stoyan, do you know in Japan, is it common to have like way more download than upload speed there, or do you typically get both at the same amount?
I think they limiting it, but there is the different ways to limit stuff. Like one is bandwidth, but they also limiting how many connections you can have to given site. So, for example,
Really?
in home, everybody want to see YouTube, But when they limiting you connections, it's becoming like we can see one by one using this like how to see this amount of this to some site. I mean,
Right.
it's not the complete bandwidth. They
Yeah.
also limiting
Weird.
sometimes like based on IP or I don't know.
Weird.
You can check this. I post one link in the chat. Akash Network. Do you know about them?
Akash Network.
Yeah,
No.
it's on the topic that you're talking now about how to see. They're giving you some device seems, and you can participate in the how to see decentralized cloud, or you can rent cloud power or something from other people. This thing,
Oh, okay.
they trying to be the decentralized Amazon.
Very cool. I might have heard of these guys a while ago when they first got started, but then it's been a while.
Yeah, it's how to see pretty active project.
Cool.
So yeah, you can check how to see because they yeah you can get this cool device, but you can also just rent services by this cloud.
Cool.
So
Yeah.
Okay. One more thing to check out.
I love the idea, and I was reading that website last night, and yeah, that's definitely needed. And right now, ISPs are probably the biggest hurdle,
Mhm.
unfortunately. And in America, unfortunately, they have regulation to keep regulatory capture to keep them in place and keep competition from coming out of on the market.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, there are solutions though. There's
Yeah, this is why I'm such a fan of IPFS is because the like the example I love to hate on is the Chinese firewall because it's such an extreme example of censorship. But the US has all sorts of like invisible censorship, like limiting your bandwidth upload speed or the number of connections you can make, or
Yeah.
there's all these little things that normal consumers don't think about, and even as experts, like it's not obvious to us.
Yeah.
And so I mean, everybody knows about VPNs today. Then they know that it solves the one problem, which is geo blocking, which I think is why most people use a VPN, or privacy.
Yeah.
But it also solves a lot of these other problems that you might not even realize are happening. And then I love the whole idea of the circuit relay in IPFS, of using another computer that two nodes can talk to in order to route around a firewall. Is very similar to the concept of a VPN. But what I love about it is that also happens automatically. So we really got this cat and mouse arms race around freedom of expression on the internet. And it's amazing how much of this is happening without the knowledge of the humans.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this race to essentially copy the internet. There are people copying over sites and stuff like that and making them accessible. And I think, unfortunately, that may be the direction things have to head, where things are copied over to an IPFS format, and that becomes the internet. And then we're able to create other ways around ISPs that way,
Yeah.
Because if you can connect, essentially creating another network, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's the way things are going to go. The web as we know it is going to change, and it's going to polarize. We're going to have this bubble wrap state sponsored web, and you're going to have this Web3 that is based on cryptography and uses really advanced routing techniques to avoid censorship.
Yeah, but that's where all the criminals go now, Chris.
Well, count me in.
No,
Yeah.
the criminals, they using legal banks and everything. They already have the structure. No one don't use like
I'm being
PSH or
sarcastic.
something.
I'm being sarcastic, based on what the media says all the time. Oh, that's dangerous over there. Don't go look over there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm a big fan of Brave. I mean, they're really like the last mile, right, to bring this whole Web3 We need more web browsers like Brave that are willing to integrate this Web3 tech. And we don't know yet what it's going to look like. Like the Googles of Web3 are just starting to form. And so we don't know who the winners are going to be yet, but whoever does win is going to make a good user experience and bring, what Brave is doing is definitely the stepping stone to that future.
I would agree. I use Brave, so it's a great browser.
Yeah. I just installed the uncensorable domain browser extension on Firefox, so now I can check out .crypto and .eth domain names. So I'm really keen to get one now that I can actually access them.
Yeah, I looked into the .eth, but then the gas fees were so high that I was like, okay, my $5 domain is going to cost me $80 for the year, and I was like,
I got mine when it was cheap, so now I have Stoyan.eth from many months ago.
There you go. I saw somebody was trying to do the same thing with Bitcoin Cash. I don't know if you've seen that.
It was me.
It was
yeah. Well, I started doing stuff like that, and then Stoyan ran with it at one of the hackathons.
Yeah.
And it's he came up with an awesome design using NFT tokens. And what's cool is you can actually have like subnets. So like if two people want to register, say like abc.com or whatever, it'd be some other TLD, but you can basically point your browser at a specific, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, Stoyan, but if this browser extension was implemented, you could just point it at a different NFT, and then that name resolution would all change based on which NFT your browser considers the source of truth.
Yeah, it was just like a NFT group with many NFT children inside. So you just point your wallet to some NFT group, and it will be the top of your DNS, like your top domain.
Mm-hmm.
So you can what you have inside, and if you don't like it, you found another provider for the same maybe names or whatever. So it was interesting idea.
I'd love to see someone build a browser extension around that idea, because that's what it would take. You need some little piece of middleware software to tell your browser how to figure all this out.
Yeah, you just need to save this top level
group token.
What is this transaction ID somewhere? And this is all you need.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
The tech is there. We just need people to build it.
Yeah, I hear you. Then I'm excited about it.
All right, well, that's probably a good place to wrap this up. Unless you guys have anything burning thing you want to get out before we do. Okay.
Nothing on the top of my head right now.
Okay, right on. Well, Aaron, I appreciate you making it. Stoyan, likewise. Stoyan, I'll ping you once I end this, and we can talk about the other NFT stuff. So yeah, I'll conclude this meeting. Thanks you guys for making it. And we'll see you next week. Same time will be the community committee meeting, and then we'll have this technical steering committee again in 2 weeks.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Cheers.